banging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again. Here I go again. Though I keep searching for an answer, never seem to find what I'm looking for. Lord, I pray you give me strength to carry on, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. I'm just another heart in need of rescue, waiting on love's sweet charity. And I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my days, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. But here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go. Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've never known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. 'Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness, walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
if it's over, so fuck it. Just don't act like my love wasn't nothing. Like I wasn't the one you was holding that night, telling all of your secrets and hugging. Guess you right, it's too good to be true. Was a point, all I needed was you. But shit, time after time, I just fussing and fighting. It's time that you do what you do. And it's cool. Mama said it was fish in the sea, I got lost in the pool. Knew it was coming, I watched how you move. How you turn your back on me and leave me to lose. Remember the text, how you said that you do. Said that you never leave, we would fight till it's due. But as it went on, I was fighting for you. Since the text turned green, why the fuck it ain't blue? Guess you done and I get it. Said you staying, you wanted my name and you left, so I'm guessing that you never meant it. Said you try and hold on, cause the love was so strong, now I'm standing alone in this kitchen. Singing sad songs, but I'm knowing that this shit don't last long. If you leaving, then leave cause your bag's gone. But just know you can never come back home.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If you say that you done, ain't no take back. Said you fell out of love and I hate that. But see me, I was stuck like a drug, really feeling for love, and somehow I can't shake back. When you walked out that door, I was hurting. All the dreams in my head, you was perfect. You remember the very first time that we chilled and I reached for your hand where them nerves at. Time to pass, but shit, that's what it do. It be times I be sick sitting thinking about you. It was death do us part. You gave me the blue, really played with my heart. Left me lost and confused. Like this shit was fair game, but you made it the rules. On my heart, left a scar and a bruise. Hope that you can stand on all the shit that you did. I'm done, y'all finally through.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stuck? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. So quit my white cause it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just
If I were still at Walmart, and that's kind of the way you know where my head is, that's the way I view all technologies when I'm considering, would I talk to this clown if I were still chief of staff, Walmart asset protection? Two things: RFID and computer vision. If I only had money for two solutions, it would be those two.
Well, that's my point too, Brandon. And same with education in school district. It's all about ratings, right? They
Yeah.
rely on those ratings so they can have kids come to their school. And the same thing applies to casinos and retailers. If you see a horrible review or you see crime at a certain store, the obligation of someone spending money at that store or that casino is pretty low if they see a lot of high crime rate. So I think there's a fine balance there between obviously keeping safety and security a high element, but also making sure that your own employees feel safe to go work there.
It ain't 1970 anymore. We have a duty of care responsibility, and the technologies are available. The frustrating part is when you walk in stores and it looks like 1970. I'm like, dude, that tells me where the leadership head is.
I think everyone can agree that every single commercial building you walk into that has some kind of fire code already put in the system. And the reason why they put fire code in there, Brown, is because buildings used to burn down. But that's a mandate.
It is a choice if you walk into Walgreens and everything's locked up, just like it was in 1970. Nothing has changed in that shopping environment, and it's a one-trick pony solution for perceived theft problems, be they real or perceived.
This was for the home team. This was for the home team.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Taylor May. Welcome back to another interview of SVIP Live. I'm the founder of Security VIP, SVIP for short. If you're new to SVIP Live, this is a quick reminder. This is my weekly interview series where I highlight end users in the security industry. And on this week's episode is pretty unique because this gentleman I'm about to introduce comes from not only the end user side, but also the solution provider side. So it's a very unique perspective. I first met this gentleman a couple years ago at a retail show in Cleveland. I made a post about this the other day, but I feel like every beautiful friendship starts out with cigars and bourbon, as it should with most relationships and friendships. But before I make this introduction, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors today, Sakura. There's a QR code listed on the screen here. You can scan that QR code, go check out what Sakura is all about. Obviously, my guest here works for them today. But make sure to check them out. And if you're not subscribed to SVIP, there's also a QR code right next to my head over here. So make sure to scan that QR code and become a subscriber of SVIP. It helps support our mission here to bridge the gap between manufacturers and end users. But all right, enough of that. I'm excited because today I am introducing and welcoming Mr. Jason Davies. He's the Vice President of CLEAR, Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail, but he also works for Sakura Global now on the manufacturer side. So Jason, my friend, welcome to SVIP Live. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Taylor. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you, man. And like I said in the intro, we first met at that show in Cleveland. Was it like NFR Protect? I think it was that show.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Good
And,
cigars. Bourbon.
Yeah, cigars, bourbon, man. It was good. And obviously, Ben was there from CVS, and we had a couple other. Greg was there from Oxfield was there as well. So it was a good time, man. It was a good friendship.
Yeah. No, I had a great time. It has been a good friendship.
Yeah, man. So it's when I made this intro, it's unique because obviously I highlight end users on this series, and you are an end user predominantly throughout your career, but you're on the solution provider side, the manufacturer side. And when we first met, you were leading things at Rite Aid, on the AP and ORC side. So I guess Jason, for those listening today, I mean, let's just start base level introduction, background, experience, kind of what you bring to the retail sector, and we'll dive into more kind of what you do at Sakura and what you're seeing around ORC.
No, absolutely. I've been in the assets protection industry for 30 plus years. Started out with the Target Corporation in 1992. Created the first ORC team in 1994 to 96, which then became Target Investigations nationally. Left Target in 2017. Went to the Zellen Group as a ORC director and also OSINT and SOCMINT, so open source intelligence, social media intelligence operator. Was then pulled into Macy's to run their ORC and Central Investigations program. And then from there, went to Rite Aid, created the ORC team for Rite Aid, took over store assets protection, which was kind of unusual. I think it's the first time in the industry that's happened, that the ORC director takes over store VP. And then left Rite Aid, went out on my own, did some consulting for a year and a half, and missed being part of a team, and had an opportunity to come on board with Secura. And I'm what 7-8 weeks in right now. So still loving it, still running the day-to-day for Clear, also working closely with LPRC. And also still advise on the boards for a couple of different entities.
There's always two industries, Jason, comes to my mind as the most challenging industries. And I've talked about casinos a lot in my career because they're a 24/7 operation. But you look at retail, it's a 24/7 operation as well. You have mass foot traffic that comes in. Obviously, the Walmarts are open 24/7. I know certain retailers might shut down, but the tier ones are typically open, for extended period of time. And also, you guys have the biggest challenges when it comes to the holiday season. Everyone talks about shrink, which so fucking annoying talking about shrink. I don't want to hit on to that too much today. But when you saw the introduction video of Brand Elverson, obviously former Walmart, he does his consulting thing. He still has kind of this animosity with certain retailers that have that 1970 approach to organized retail crime, whether it's just the lockup method. So I guess from your experience, man, when you manage things at Rite Aid and obviously Target and Macy's, I know Joe Cole just left Macy's. We talked about that before we kicked this off live. But what is the issue there, man, from a leadership side perspective? Like, is that a last resort where you just like, you know what, we've tried it and exhausted all of our options for SOPs or technologies, we're just going to lock shit up? But, is that last resort, or is that kind of like what these other guys are doing right now?
It's a mixture of last resort, frustration, and not knowing what to do next. And we talk about leadership, in the retail industry. We've got some great operators out there, some great leaders. The problem of ORC today is completely out of hand. But if you look at ORC teams, for the most part, in these retailers, it's the smallest part of their AP team. So you have these investigators and these directors and these managers out there 24/7 chasing criminals, trying to work with law enforcement, trying to liaise with everything from your DAs, your state attorney's offices, even to legislators, to try and get laws changed. The stores cut back on store assets protection over the last 10, 15 years, went hands off when the pandemic and the war on police started, and never went back. And so now your criminals are running unchecked. We are getting some headway on, some of the state statutes and changing, thresholds and changing, different, laws in different states. And I won't go into which states those are, but everybody knows which ones we've been working on. And it's at the point now where, technology isn't there yet to prevent the mass theft of product. I mean, we talk about Rite Aid. We had stores where we couldn't keep merchandise on the shelves. As soon as it made it out on the shelf, it was swiped by the boosters. And even take the boosters out of traditional ORC, your recidivist, your local shoplifter would come in, or sometimes not even a shoplifter. They just come in and see that other people were taking things, and they would grab it and walk out. So how do you prevent that? So most retailers like, well, we got to lock everything up, and that impacts our sales, right? That also impacts workload. It impacts so many different aspects of the retail ecosystem, but mostly it impacts our brand. It impacts how customers view us. It impacts us how the criminal views us, and in some cases has stepped up the amount of violence in our stores, because now the criminals want to get into the showcases. So they're either going to smash the showcases or force the employees to open them. And technology is slowly catching up on how do we reduce the friction for the customer, and whether that's digitally being able to open, a showcase with your phone or whatever it may be. We're still not there yet to where it's being beneficial to sales and beneficial to our brand. There's got to be a point at somewhere down the road where we have to start unlocking this merchandise. But the only way we're going to be able to do that is kind of a mixed approach. And first of all, it is legislation. We've got to put a bite back in the law. If your criminals don't fear consequence, they're going to continue to operate the way they always have. We also have to look at how do we change the mindsets in communities. And part of what we would do, and I used Rite Aid once again, was, we had a team that went out and liaised with community leaders and business improvement districts and, the beat cops on how can we show support for law enforcement, show support for the community, but also teach them that, hey, these people from the community that are coming in or stealing are hurting you. They're ruining your access to food. They're ruining your access to pharmaceuticals, to healthcare in many cases. So we've got to do a better job of educating the community as a whole as well.
You mentioned a lot of good points, and obviously when it comes to those kind of crime areas and theft rings and everything like that, it has a huge impact on attrition and retention rates for both employee base and as well as your customer base. And when that starts affecting your ability to even hire and retain talent, it's a huge negative on the P&L because you're not able to run stores efficiently. And I know even like I'm not to call it names, but I know like Walgreens and some of the CVS locations have had to shut down certain stores because of crime or issues with turnover. And I know turnover is a big thing in every single industry, but you're right, man. There's I feel like there's this mentality in place with criminals where they can get away with it. Part of that is due because lack of technology or lack of safety and security, but also lack of leadership that has their political opinion in the mix of security decisions. And I've said that before too with Brand when he was at Walmart. Man, there's too much bureaucracy at the top when it comes to safety and security.
Yeah, and sometimes it's wrapped in the guise of risk mitigation, if you will.
Yeah.
But if you look at a retail employee, on average, it costs $4,000 to hire and onboard an associate. These associates, and we'll talk more so around urban environments. They're literally, in many cases, putting their lives on the line when they go to work.
Right.
And one of the challenges that we had, New York City, for instance, many of these associates lived in the community where they worked. So the individuals that were coming into their stores to steal were from their community. And they were assaulted, they were threatened, and they quit. And you're trying to bring somebody else into that environment. Once again, it's going to cost you, more time, more money, but you never get a cohesive trained team because of it.
Right.
So you're always changing out, associates and managers. So then you start to see operational issues within the stores because there is no experts. Everybody's new. And nobody's committed to those locations. They fear for their safety.
There was a situation since I'm based in Dallas. I want to ask you this question. We understand external challenges, we understand shoplifters and shrinkage and all that stuff, but internal challenges too. Obviously, we mentioned retention and attrition, but internal theft happens at every industry you can think of. And a situation here in Dallas not too long ago, Jason, I think last week, was there was a Dallas police officer who helped manage some of the Apple stores and since 2013. And like since 2013, he's been slowly stealing Apple products, tablets, devices, phones. Almost, I think the dollar amount was around like $25,000 or $30,000 throughout the last 30 years. Now, granted, to Apple, that's small scale, but you have a police officer stealing merchandise. How much is that happening on the internal side with some of these retailers?
Well, I mean, even more so today, I think, as employees become disgruntled and they see the rampant theft, and just to step back one step here real quick, all of this theft that's being observed by juveniles, right, is being seen as just a commonplace thing. Hey, that's just how the world is today. And then those juveniles become working age, go into the retail environment, and it's just seen as okay. I've had conversations with an employee that was investigated, interviewed and terminated. And, it was simply, hey, just everybody else is doing it, and I'm making $11 an hour, and I can't afford what my friends have.
Right.
You know.
No, that was my question too. Obviously, with compensation, if making that kind of wage and you see other people making killing online, especially with social media now, man, you've got these kids that are making 7 figures of income sometimes per
Yep.
month. And I mean, I'm a
Exactly.
former has-been college football player. I didn't get no NIL money when I played, so I'm kicking myself even in that spectrum. But you're right, man. It's, I guess, and I'm not saying money's the end all be all, but you got to find out what really drives your employee base to succeed. Maybe it's a career change, or maybe it's a title change, maybe it's more responsibility, maybe they're just happy in their current role being worked there. But I guess you got to find that that passion to obviously decrease your attrition rate and keep employees happy. So I'm going to pause just for 1 second for the audience that is tuned in right now. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We got about 40 people here, Jason, that I see across the platforms. But if you have a question, please drop your question in the chat. I will highlight it for Jason. Again, Jason is a expert in retail AP ORC. But back to you, Jason. Um, Obviously working for a manufacturer now, we could obviously talk about Secure and why you chose them. But I guess from just a technology standpoint, I mean, what have you seen so far in retail that is like innovative, must have, game changing, whatever it may be, whatever buzzword you want to fucking say. But what has been like the go-to solution you think right now in retail?
Well, I think, there's a couple of different things, and I look at solutions as not just for AP, but how do they impact, once again, the ecosystem of the retailer.
Right.
But we'll start with, just from kind of more of a tactical side of it. So LPR, which you're very familiar with,
Yep.
is enabling us to link more suspects' vehicles with crimes over large geographic areas. We're able to do more time-day analysis, or TDA. You link that with a robust artificial intelligence case management system. I think those two pieces right there are night and day from where we were 10 years ago, right? Factor in, and I know some retailers are still a little shy of facial recognition or feature matching, as some people like to call it.
Is that the new word, feature matching?
Yeah, feature matching.
Oh my God.
It's the kind or facial recognition.
Good Lord.
We add that into play, and now you're building, basically a toolbox to identify crime, criminals, and patterns faster. And I've said this over the years, and people probably heard it in other interviews. Data is gold. Once it's triaged, it allows us to move faster. It allows us to put up barriers where we need to. It allows us to assess the risk that's involved with the type of activity that we're seeing. It allows us to be more nimble and work more closely with our retail counterparts. And that's one of the nice things about some of the case management programs today is we're able to investigate cross company. We're able to investigate with CVS and law enforcement all at the same time, and that's a game changer once you add in this other technology. So there's the tactical side. The next piece is RFID. RFID allows us as investigators, to identify a product that's been stolen from specific retailers. And I take my hat off to Joe Cole and the team at Macy's for how they implemented their RFID, because I could push my team out into the field with readers, go, into, fencing locations, bodegas, and they could scan, and see if there was product in the store, and then be able to track it back to when it was stolen and who walked out the door with it.
Yeah.
So when we went to the DA's office and said, hey, here's this case, we put a bow tie on for you, it was a slam dunk, which then allows us to truly start investigating instead of spending all of our time on the boosters, because it's whack-a-mole with them, right? They're a dime a dozen. We can focus on the people that are creating the demand, and that's the multi-layer fences. And the reality there is, think of the major wholesalers that are out there as the crime families here in the U.S. They run day-to-day operations that drives the the market for stolen property. So when we can start putting them on their back foot because they're like, hey, does this product have RFID? Because it can be tracked back to when it was stolen.
Right.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. Well, they're putting RFID even in chipsets at casinos now, man.
Yep.
One of the casinos in Vegas that I'm friends with, he does that. He's got all the bells and whistles. I mean, I guess, Jason, my next question there, when we talk about the shared relationship or shared responsibility to solve crime and theft, and everyone talks about that in retail, but how often do retailers actually share with law enforcement? I know Clear does an incredible job with that partnership and that parallel, but are you finding that most retailers are open to sharing data with law enforcement, or do you have those retailers that are like, yeah, we can handle our own. We're gonna, stay where we are and not do that?
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question, 10, 15 years ago, I would have told you there was just a small handful that would
Yeah,
share information with law enforcement real time, and also share information with other retailers. Those days are quickly coming to an end. Most
good.
retailers are sharing information between themselves, with restrictors, of course, PII being understandable, but real time with law enforcement. The only way we can actually impact the amount of theft, fraud, and safety issues that are plaguing retailers to this day is by working real time with each other. I mean, there's no option. There's no choice. Now, part of the problem there is maybe we do have a few companies out there that don't, and I don't think it's because they don't want to collaborate. I don't think the story has been told right to their legal department or their C-suite on why it's so important. And I can tell you, from having to, go before legal and the C-suite and explain, doing, mobile surveillances, having facial recognition. A lot of times they just don't know. And,
Yeah.
Today's investigators and today's investigative leaders, your directors, senior managers, they have to be good at marketing. They have to market what they do and why they do it to be successful. More so because their teams are so small, but secondly, so they can get the buy-in from their leadership.
I want to dissect that more. So we talk about buying from leadership. We talk about having a seat at the table. I talk about this often in different industries, and some people are really good at building business cases and justifying ROI and all that stuff. So I guess when you were at Rite Aid or Macy's or Target, and pick any retailer you worked for, when it comes to solutions that you want to invest in, you have a capex and an opex budget, and you have to maybe share rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes. But I guess when you do these business case discussions to leadership, I mean, how are you justifying the expense for a solution? Maybe because again, we talk about stupid political poison being involved. We talk about lack of resources being involved. We talk about marketing always having more money, which they always have more money. So that would be my recommendation: is go tap your marketing colleague and say, hey, yeah, this is some marketing analytics here. We can split the cost on. But walk me through that process, man. How do you build that business case?
Yeah, I think I always look at it as when I prepare for the no, right? Prepare for them to tell you no, you can't have it. So I prepare my presentation with that in mind, and I pull in my peers from within the company, the other stakeholders from other departments. So if I'm getting a solution, that impacts my day to day in ORC and AP, how can that solution also affect the operators
Right,
or HR or legal or risk?
right.
And I build that into the business case. So it's not just assets protection asking for this widget that costs $100,000. Here's how it's going to impact the day-to-day operations of the business. Here's how it's going to impact everything from labor costs to legal fees, lawsuits. Here's how it's going to impact our brand. And usually, depending on whether it's hardware or software, usually, I'll bring in, a stakeholder as well to talk to their side of the business for it.
Well, it's good because honestly, when it comes to new innovation and technology, again, some people understand this better than others. And what you and I are saying is common sense. But the reason I bring this up, Jason, is because when I go to the industry conferences, I tell manufacturers like you should be asking the questions with the AP director or the ORC director or whoever is managing safety and security and say, hey, how involved are you with other stakeholders inside your business? Because I understand you're going to have resources on maybe funding or budget challenges or whatever it may be. But if you have involvement with marketing, operations, legal, it's good to bring those people in the party, especially from the solution provider side, because then you have more open dialogue and maybe some opportunity there to get your product or solution embedded. And so I always like to encourage that conversation at the get-go with manufacturers. Plus the point that you and I made earlier, where do manufacturers suck? That's the first question that these guys should ask, or end users should ask, which is probably a question now that you're probably going to get. Now we're on the solution provider side. Hey, Jason, where does Secura suck, man? But now you're going to handle that question probably flawlessly. So
Well, look, it's you got to ask the hard questions sometimes,
right.
right? But you also got to be able to answer when you get asked.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, especially with, like, solution providers, um, and I got this from being on the retail side of it, is they were always trying to sell me their newest widget,
Yeah.
the newest technology. Let me tell you about my bells and whistles. And I'm like, well, first you need to understand my business. You need to understand what I'm facing. You need to understand, what my pain points are. And then you need to tell me how am I going to reduce labor costs, with it. And look, I'm in product protection. So when I have conversations from a business development standpoint, you know, I want the client to know that, hey, our technology will help you reduce labor costs.
Right.
It will help you reduce, payroll. It's going to help you reduce friction for your customers. These are all the things they need to be able to sell product, okay, and make a profit. So I'm just not, out there trying to push, technology just to stop a shoplifter. I want to impact your day-to-day business. And for me to understand your business first, so I'm not coming in trying to sell you, once again, our newest item. I'm going to sell you what you need to at least be able to catch your breath, and then we can talk about the newest of the new later on.
Well, that's why I like highlighting you, Jason. And I tell that to anyone that was a former end user that now works for manufacturers. You need to leverage your end user experience in those conversations with fellow end users or end users that you're pitching to, because the wall tends to go down a lot faster than if you're just wearing that solution provider hat half the time. And getting to know the end user personally, I have a rule of thumb here in Texas: faith, family, football, the triple F. If I can't relate to faith or family or football with you, then something's wrong with you in the head. I'm just kidding. But something that's relatable where I can have an open dialogue and then have those transparent conversations. Because I think that's one of the issues in the security side, not just in retail, but the security side. You've had those manufacturers that go to the bells and whistles in the first 30 seconds of their pitch versus having that open dialogue and discussion around, okay, I don't know if my product will be right for you. Because I haven't learned enough about your business, so it's just those basic things and principles that I try to educate at least the industry that I'm in when it comes to cutting edge technology. And I think more often we're seeing now, Jason, what I've seen, we've seen a lot of technology companies now enter the security industry. And what I mean by that, we see engineers from Meta, Netflix, Facebook that are developing technologies for the security industry, and they're developing technologies light years faster than the security industry. And so you see more of a conversation happen versus a direct sales pitch happen, is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah,
it's a healthy shift.
yeah. Well, I can tell you, another thing for me from being an end user is I want my solution providers to collaborate together.
100%.
Right? I don't want to have to buy six different products that kind of do the same things each, but each one has a different, you know, spec to it that helps me in certain areas. You know, Solution providers need to start um, truly getting some synergy, and pulling together and working with the clients. Look, we've got solution providers out there that are already doing it, but I'd like to see more of it throughout the industry. I think it's important. I think, we talked about earlier about retailers working with retailers and working with law enforcement and
Yep.
working with community leaders, working with legislators, with lawmakers, all of that. That's an important piece. But to get that right technology or that right, that better mousetrap sometimes takes, a couple of different solution providers to come together. And that's one of the things that, I'll talk about case management systems, out there. I'm starting to see those providers work very, very closely with other vendors, solution providers,
Good.
and bringing, other players into the market that normally wouldn't. I mean, and we haven't even touched on AI yet and how that's impacting assets protection and operations. So yeah, the collaboration needs to happen across the board.
Well, we'll talk about that next. And you're right. I mean, I think the issue sometimes is competition, and people. I love competition personally, so I love to compete. But some manufacturers don't like to entertain competition, or they're scared to do competition because they think their product is the one all be all solution, for the end user. But you're right. But let's pivot, man, to AI. The reason why I hate saying the word AI, because you probably know this is a fucking buzzword. I hate
It
saying
is.
that. Computer vision is the same thing.
Yep.
So I'll ask you a question around that, around AI, real quick. But again, for my audience, we got about 30 minutes left on the live session. If you have a question, please drop it in the chat. Don't be shy now. Jason doesn't bite. Drop a question. I will highlight it and ask Jason your question. But I guess going to AI, Jason, we talk about the positives of AI with analytics. We talk about workplace safety. We talk about deal flow, marketing analytics. We also talk about the weaponization of AI. And what I mean by that, the weaponization of AI, we talk about deepfakes happening now
Yep.
with AI, and I found a solution for deepfakes. We can talk about that if you want. But I guess for your perspective, how are you seeing AI evolve in the retail sector?
I think, well, AI as a whole is every minute it evolves. It's changing constantly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of unknown about AI that's creating risk for your everyday person, but then also for corporations that don't have proper policies and protocols for use of AI by their associates, by their team members. Um, AI has been used in case management for quite some time. We used it heavily at Rite Aid, and I can tell you, it made our investigators and our store security 10 times more dangerous to the bad guys that came in because we knew they were coming. Um, but AI as a day-to-day operation tool, I don't think it's there quite yet. I think there's aspects of it that are there. I think it's evolving, it's learning every day. Um, I don't know if I would be comfortable having, my employees using it without any type of training. So I think there's some, at least, some basic training that needs to be done on use.
Right.
Part of the problem with utilizing AI to a person that, isn't trained and isn't not even a subject matter expert, but at least a subject matter novice, is you still need to understand what it's generating based off your prompts. And we know that AI can hallucinate. It can provide, false information. It can take you down the road that you want to go down because you're giving it prompts in a certain way. So it's something that is evolving. But I just don't think it's there quite yet.
Well, the reason why I bring up the weaponization of AI, because the biggest concern, as a father, and is, your kids being manipulated by AI when it comes to deepfake technology. So someone impersonating Taylor May to say, "Hey, come meet me at XYZ place, or come do this for me," and the kid thinks it's their parent, or an executive thinks it's, or a employee thinks it's their executive, and they do it. There's a
Yep.
huge liability there. So what I've seen now on the cyber side, Jason, is obviously deepfake technology, impersonations happening. You look at MGM Grand; they got hacked over a voice line, a phone line. Someone impersonated an executive and got confidential information. MGM had to pay him out over $100 million, and that's a digital attack. So there's a company out there, man, called Swear, I recently met, and they can essentially tell you whether or not your voice, your media, your video, your picture has been altered or modified based on what you send. So it's a patented piece of technology. It's stupid incredible. But I researched technology for that for years, man, because we always talked about trainings. We always talked about education. Obviously, if you see something that looks suspicious, do this X, Y, and Z. But that's a huge issue, man, because obviously AI has its huge benefits. I agree with you. It's not fully there yet. Maybe it's fully there in certain industries, but there's also the bad actors and nefarious actors that are using AI to their advantage. And that's
Yeah.
usually confidential information or financial information, et cetera.
Yeah, and from an investigative standpoint, AI has been used for quite some time, and I do consult for two different AI companies, and it's amazing what a platform can do when it has the right throttles and it has the
Yeah,
right safeties in place. General AI for whether it's Grok, whether it's Claude AI, ChatGPT, or any of the other ones that are out there, and you have you know you know retail associates utilizing it to help them with their work. That's my fear, is that there's no training for it. From a identifying bad actors, bad data, you know, criminal acts. I do see it being used and used successfully. But once again, it's all that data is also being triaged by a human being before it's actionable.
right.
So I'd love to be a day where we're able to sit back and still have our hand on the throttle, but allow AI to protect us 24/7 from thousands of attempted hits a day. You talk about people calling in and impersonating. I mean, retailers have been dealing with that for decades,
I
right?
bet. Yeah.
And now that there's AI out there that can identify that and stop that, that's great. Because before it was a group of individuals in some other country calling, and even using technology to change voices, and but they can only hit so many targets, right?
Right.
When you have AI that's doing it and it can hit 1,000 targets a minute, that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night, obviously, as we continue to evolve, because it's obviously being adopted massively. And I mean, I agree with you, man. There's a lot of pros with AI, especially around incident reports, being able to use like AI as an LLM, like a chat GPT, and it's able to write the incident in real time as it's happening, whether it's a slip and fall or it's an active shooter or a drive-by, whatever it may be. It can write that incident. Some companies have that like AI feature built in to write incident reports a lot faster, which is convenient, for the operator and the user. Um, I guess I've got 1,000 questions to ask you, Jason. I do want to encourage I encourage our audience to drop a question here. Please drop a question in the chat. I guess I want to tell you about a story. And I told this story to Bran when he was on SVIP Live. I said, Bran, when my wife was pregnant, we just had our son about 2.5 months ago, 3 months old now. But when she was pregnant, she went to a Walmart with our toddler. We have a 2-year-old toddler, and obviously she was pregnant with our son at the time. But when she went to a Walmart, and again, I'm not trying to blast Walmart here, but Walmart's not the place I tell my wife to go shop. There's a whole long story there. She felt like she was being followed, being watched, and that's not that Walmart. And so I asked that question to Brand, if someone feels like they're being watched or monitored inside a retail store, especially someone who is pregnant and carrying a child, in the eyes of a nefarious actor, that tells me, okay, it's going to take her longer to load up the car with the kids as well as the groceries. So there's my window of opportunity to take advantage of that, that mom or that person that, is
Mhm.
pregnant. What is your advice if you do feel like, females or someone's being or watched inside a retail store? What is it? Go talk to a manager? Is it being escorted to your car? What is the advice of you from that
Well, yeah,
situation?
my first piece of advice, and it's what I told my daughter, is when she went off to college, but she'd probably heard it 1,000 times before that. Don't look like a victim,
Mm,
right? And what I mean by that is, you know, be assertive, be sure of yourself, and get to where there's people, right? And you're safer in numbers in most cases, and have notify store management that, hey, this is what I just observed, this is how it made me feel. You don't know if it's an employee, you don't know if it's somebody, an assets protection associate that's undercover, or if it's somebody with uh, you know criminal intentions. So I'd want my daughter to let the store management know so they can protect the other guests that are in the store. And then, yeah, I would ask to be escorted to my vehicle if they're unable to locate the individual. It's up to the retailers, to provide a safe shopping environment and experience for their customers, right? But it's also up to the customer to notify, that business when something's wrong.
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't have, the amount of store security in stores that we had, 10, 15 years ago. In many cases, we don't have any store security. So the managers, the employees, they become the first line of defense or protection.
When you were at Rite Aid, when y'all did new initiatives for safety and security, was it typically in your hotspot locations, or did you do a mainstream approach and just attack them all with the same setup, same holistic, procedure? Did you do that, or is it one by
Well,
one picking the hotspots?
so for training, we try to train all of our employees to handle,
Right.
situations across the board. It wasn't just specific locations. In urban environments where we had high risk stores, there were other things that we put into play that we did have to provide some additional training to, but it was all on a case by case basis. But the pandemic and once again the war on police changed all that because the threat levels in our stores skyrocketed overnight. So we did have to push out, training and policies very, very quickly to micro markets and then expand it to, full enterprise.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. And speaking of my wife, she dropped a question for you, Jason. She likes to drop questions for my guest. I got two questions actually for you. We got a question from Chadwick and a question from my wife. I'm going to point to my wife's question since we're talking about this. In those scenarios, Jason, do retailers have a way to keep track of people who are following women so they don't return? That's my wife. So what's the answer there, Jason?
Well, I would tell you, the first thing retailers would say, well, hey, if we have law enforcement, respond and they're able to identify the person, make contact, they'll trespass them. Okay, well, we all know people violate trespass orders all the time, right? So some retailers that are a little more forward thinking have now started using facial recognition,
Right.
or as we heard, feature matching,
Feature matching.
to identify individuals that are entered into their system as being either violent or shoplifters or whatever it may be. But they're never going to be able to track everyone at all times, and usually individuals will move on from location to location and won't return if they're confronted. But in the cases where they're not, unless you have alert employees, employees on the floor and store management and maybe security that remembers that individual, it's kind of hard to truly track those individuals when they come back in.
One of the things, Jason, and I've said this before on SVIP. There's a good friend of mine, Scott McCartney. He was the head of security for the San Antonio Spurs, but now he's leading head of security for FIFA, for the World Cup next year. And one of the things that he always said to me is like, Taylor, if people would just look up from their phones and greet one another and said hi, you wouldn't have so many issues or victims when it comes to safety and security. And that's so true, especially in retail. If you had employees, as soon as I walk into the store, if I feel like embraced and feel valued as I walk in the store, like Buc-ee's, for example. If you ever go to Buc-ee's, like they're always like, "Welcome to Buc-ee's, great to have you here." And it's always like, the odds of someone actually causing like a mass shooting or doing something to harm, I wouldn't say goes away, but I think the whole approach goes down as far as like a negative experience for the employees. And so I think that's a good point that Scott
Yeah,
told me.
when you have employees that are engaging all customers, Target did an amazing job at this when I was there. Can I help you find something? You make eye contact.
Yeah.
You ask them. First of all, it's going to help your brand. It's going to help you with sales. It's going to make the customer feel valued. But your bad actor is going to go, that person just looked right at my face. That person knows I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as looking down at the phone, I can't tell you how many times I walked into one of our stores. And you have an employee, an associate, stocking a shelf, but watching videos on their phone. They're clueless to their environment.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things here in Texas, man, with schools at least, they said no phones allowed now at school, so kids have to put their phone away when they go to school. And obviously, I think that's probably a good thing because you've got ChatGPT now that can help, answer answer questions and
Right.
no other. But it's good to put the phone away because even when I went to high school, man, I didn't have a special phone or anything, but we met up during the hallways and actually had conversations in person versus texting. Um, Another
Yeah.
question that came in, Jason. This is from my friend Chad here. Looking at your experience, what got you interested in security and safety management? Second question, and what motivated you to stay in the investigation field for the last 30 years? Good question.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got out of the United States Army, as a young man, and needed a job, and I was waiting to get on with a law enforcement agency, and I was in a Target store in Delray Beach, Florida, and I see this store security officer trying to follow the shoplifter, and so I was like, well, I can do that, and so I helped him out and helped him apprehend the individual, and on my way out, the district manager was there and says, hey, do you want to come work for us? And that's how I started. I took an application, put it on the table, said, I'm not going to be a store security officer. Threw it down the table and said, forget about it. And then I still had a little bit of adrenaline pump. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just try that out.
Yeah.
So 33 years later, here I am. And what kept me interested was, after about a year and a half being enrolled as a access protection manager, I was frustrated because I kept seeing the same individuals stealing day in and day out. I knew they were taking it and selling it. They weren't called boosters yet. They were just they're just shoplifters. So I started putting together my old lists of who I was apprehending, tag numbers. That evolved into getting arrest warrants for individuals. And that's when King Rogers, who, if you don't know him, he's a wizard, came to me and said, hey, I love what you're doing. How would you like to prove a concept and do this full time? So he gave me 1 year to prove the concept, and we started Target Investigations. There wasn't a day, and there hasn't been a day in my career, and I know this sounds, fake, that I didn't look forward to going to work. When I put my head on the pillow at night, I loved thinking about what I was going to do next to put someone in jail, to shut down a fencing operation, to catch a serial robbery suspect or serial burglary suspect. It was the chase. And, it became, part of who I was in my day-to-day activities. Then building the teams was even better. And now you're managing, all of these different investigators that are managing, heavy caseloads, but it's still a puzzle, and I enjoyed it.
To double tap that, I mean, obviously I can hear your passion, your voice. That's obviously you have to have passion to do what you have to do, and you can't teach that, and you know that, Jason. It has to come from
Yeah.
within. People have to be passionate about their job, but it's cool to hear you say that when it comes to safety and security because it is a passionate profession. You have to be driven to catch the bad guys. I guess going off of that though, dive deeper into that. What's been the most proudest moment for you in your last 30 years, man, in your career? Is it catching people? Is it promoting people internally? Is it, the recognition or awards you've won? I mean, walk me through the most proudest achievement you had so far.
I think the people part is, taking, new investigators with little to no experience, and within a period of time, have them closing out multi-million dollar investigations. And not just people on my own team. And that was one of the unique things about, the role was, I was also working with other retailers and helping other retailers, our competition, helping them build their own teams. So I think, it's just the evolution and watching my baby grow into something bigger than I ever thought it would. Yeah, so it's teaching, training, and supporting people to be at their best, and to impact the community.
I can hear the selflessness in your voice, man. I like that. I'm like the biggest hype man there is when it comes to end users, dude. I'm like, if you need me to be a hype man, I'll be a hype man. Um, But I love that, man. I love that answer because you are selfless. You care about others. You care about the industry. Even I know you're working for if you're working for a tier one, you want to help out the other tier ones. You want everyone to be successful because they're all going through the similar, if not same, challenge.
Yep.
That you are. I guess a parallel that I see commonly when it comes to managing SOCs, security operations centers or surveillance rooms, particularly in gaming. What I've seen in gaming is these director of surveillances and security directors, what they look for as far as talent is they look for people that are gamers or coders because they're used to seeing split screens or playing Call of Duty. They can make those split second judgment calls. Do you see that common heuristic with retail when it comes to people watching screens and monitors? Do you look for that kind of heuristic?
Um, yeah, I mean, so with my previous role, I hired individuals strictly for, video analysis and basically video monitoring, right? And those were individuals that were comfortable in that environment, that had attention to detail. Because we all know, sitting watching computer screens, and especially if you have any type of, video analytics where it's popping up things for you to look at, it's tedious, it's tiring.
Yep.
You
Yep.
have to find somebody that has the right mindset for that. Because if they don't, then their mind starts wandering, their eyes start wandering, and then they start missing key critical pieces, um, to a criminal act or a safeness act, whatever it may be. From an investigator standpoint, it's the same. I'm looking for individuals that you know can sell what they do, because they have to sell cases, they have to sell strategies, they have to sell processes, not just within the store environment, but also outside the store environment to law enforcement.
Right.
I can remember, when I first started doing ORC investigations, here's this, in their mind, this security guard walking into my precinct, and he's going to tell me how to do my job. So, um, being able to liaise with people, and sell what you have is extremely important to an ORC investigator that's successful. I've seen a lot of ORC investigators come on board. They're great people, right? They're great at doing the internals. They were great at doing auditing. So the next step was, hey, now let's put them into ORC, and they just didn't have that skill set,
Yeah.
and some of it you just can't teach.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because I see that too with school resource officers, SROs in schools. You can't just take any, street out cop off the street and make them an SRO. It takes a special person to do that job and be friends with kids and students and make sure they feel, welcoming. So I can relate to that. Another question that came in here from Chad, Jason, hitting more on seeing others develop. What's your strategy to assist those you see have potential to be better in their career, but they don't quite see it in themselves quite yet? Another good
Yeah,
question.
that's actually a great question. The first part of it on development is they've got to have a mentor, but not just one mentor, right? They need to have multiple mentors that have the strengths that maybe they don't have, right? It's mentorship 101. But the importance of having multiple is you're going to get a different style from each individual. You're going to get different strengths from those individuals. You're going to get some that are maybe a little more tougher and will tell you the truth in a way that kind of stings a little bit, which sometimes we all need. So that's the first part, is the mentorship piece. Second piece is, what am I doing as a leader to make sure they're growing, not just technically, okay, but with business savvy as well. And then that's one of the things that I love about Clear, right? Is we provide those opportunities to newer investigators or even seasoned investigators, both on the private sector and public sector, on how to grow as managers, as individuals within their specific arena. And you are always going to have, individuals that just, they're scared of failing, and you know. I want to see my people fail. Because I want to see how they pick themselves back up and how they move forward, right? But I need to be there, or my managers need to be there to ensure that we're providing them with the right guidance, with the right amount of pushing, because sometimes individuals that don't see themselves in that way need to be pushed a little bit and get them out of their comfort zone. And that's where adding responsibility that's within their wheelhouse and within their skill set, and let them get wins. Because if you're going to give them responsibility where they're just going to fail, then all you're going to do is solidify that, hey, you know what, I'm just not there. I don't have the potential. But it's each individual is also different as well.
You got to be a chameleon, right? I mean, you have to wear different hats sometimes to be as relatable as possible. It's the same thing that I've said for years on the sales leadership side. Everyone's going through their own journey, and everyone has their own passion and mission. You have to be as relatable as possible to what they're going through. Jason, we're at the top of the hour. We haven't hit too much on Secura, so I guess my last question to you is, why the hell did you make the jump to Secura? Obviously, you saw a need or an interest in the technology or product that they have. So I do want to point that as my last question, man. So talk me through the value proposition of Secura.
Yeah, well, look, it was pretty simple for me. I was consulting. I was living the dream, and Secura came to me and said, "Hey, come sell our stuff." It's like, and literally said that, and
Sell
I
our
was
shit.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, no, it's like, but the background on it is I worked with Secure when I was at Rite Aid. We were losing $150,000, a week in liquor, and they just happened to have a solution that was bar none better than anyone else, and got to talking with the team and really fell in love with the culture there. Never thought I would go to work for them, or even work for a product protection solution provider, until I was at a show, and we sat and had a conversation, and lo and behold, it just felt right at the moment, and I wanted to be part of a team again. And part of me didn't also want the stress of running, ORC and APT, and it just made sense. I still get to help the retail community. I still get to, do the things that I enjoy doing, from an ORC standpoint through Clear, but now from an operational standpoint through Secura, I get to have a continued impact, and I get to learn. I'm learning new things, and that's important for me as well.
Always have to be a continuous learner, my friend. That's
Yep.
that's the name of the game. I guess we're halfway through 2025. Last thing here, I mean, is there anything that you're looking forward to for the rest of the year? Is it maybe just growing Secura further, getting
Well,
more revenue? I mean,
yeah,
walk me through, man.
not to do a plug here, but I'm looking forward to October 20th through the 23rd in Orlando for the Clear, Fleet Crew, and LPRC combined conference.
There you
Uh,
go.
and if you're not familiar with it, go to clearusa.org. Check us out. You can also go to LPRC's website or Fleet Crew's website. It's an amazing conference for training, for networking, for personal growth, and as Taylor had said, great cigars and bourbon.
That should be like a mandate at every conference, man. Like a
It
welcome
should.
pack, like a welcome pack. It's like,
It
here you
should.
go. Jason, if more people want to get more involved with you, my friend, where's the best place to do that?
I mean, reach me through LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way, and or even through the Clear website as well.
All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with me on SVIP Live today.
Thanks, Taylor. It's always a pleasure.
All right, guys and girls, that was Jason, Vice President of Clear, and he's heading things at Secura, so make sure to go check him out. There's a QR code on the screen of Secura. You can check out what exactly we're doing. Make sure you connect with Jason on LinkedIn. He's a great guy, great leader to learn from in retail, obviously being a former end user as well, so I love speaking on that perspective. If you're not subscribed to SVIP, make sure to be a subscriber, and make sure to join us next week. We've got 2 episodes on SVIP Live. We're going to the school education landscape with Amanda, and we're going to gaming with John. So we have a back-to-back SVIP Live interviews next week. So make sure to join the discussion, and you guys stay safe out there.